Magic Makers. I'm Mom Virella.
I'm Yukita Cosplay.
And I'm CJ Peterson. Welcome to Magic Making Mischief. Get your wands to the ready. Get them ready. Because we solemnly swear we are up to no good. And speaking of up to no good, today we have with us...
Hi, my name is Juan Muniz, straight from Las Vegas.
Awesome. Thank you for pronouncing that, because I did not want to mess it up. He's a children's author and autism activist. So, Mommy Rolla, would you care to share how you know him?
Yes, and for those of y'all who noticed, we are missing a co-host today. She sadly could not be with us. But speaking of, this is one of the books that I actually got. And the way that we crossed paths was our last Disney cruise that we took. We do the gift exchange fish extender. So there's a Facebook group that you set up for each Disney cruise you go on to contact the people in your cruise. And it creates like a good sense of community. And this was the book they gave us in our fish extender. That it has his art and everything. I love the art piece, by the way. Okay. And ironically, I have to mention this because I thought this was so funny. You don't always know each other's faces because you're commenting, you're sharing questions about the cruise and stuff on that group. And so we actually crossed paths on the cruise itself. At one point, we were in the lobby and my husband and me were taking pictures, and y'all came up and said, "Hey, would you mind taking a picture for us?" And it was later after the cruise, I went back and I went, "Wait, I know who that was." And I flipped through the Facebook group and I'm like, "Yeah, that was them." So that was my husband that took y'all's picture in the lobby in front of the Mickey statue.
Thank you. That was late.
Yes, we love wandering the halls of the cruise at night.
Party animals.
Disney cruise was
my favorite. It's
not
terribly bad because the Disney cruise kind of ends early for adults and it keeps going a little longer for kids. Like with adults, it'll end like around like 11 or 12, and like my kids would come in at like 1 in the morning. And I was like, man, it must be fun to be here.
For real. Oh my goodness. Real quick, guys. Jeremy Vander says hello, everyone. Jeremy Vander's Wands, maker of wonderful wands since 2024. Yes, indeed. You can see all the different amazingness that he has created. And you don't see Juju's today, but it's okay because she'll be back next time. It'll be great.
And
speaking of Juju, I love you guys. Daddy and I are watching. We love you too, Juju.
Miss you, Juju.
Big kisses.
Yeah. Feel better.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm excited. Thank you guys for having me so much.
Yeah, it's so great having you. I absolutely love how your books are not just great stories for kids, great art that you do, but also it's an advocacy for autism, and it really it presents it to kids in a way that they can understand. And even those who have autism, like it shows it to them as, in this one, a superpower, basically. And I love that. I think that is like the sweetest perspective on it. And
I'm excited. It means so much to me that parents with kids that are on the spectrum love it, and like that the kids love it, because at the end of the day, that's the biggest compliment that I can get. Yeah. And it was such an amazing feeling because like I said, for me, a little story about me, it was like I grew up, I wanted to be an illustrator for Disney. Like I wanted to work for Disney, and I wanted to be a Disney animator more than anything in the world. And I actually went to school for animation, and got my degree. Moved back to Vegas, and then I ended up like working as a tattoo artist for 10 years and got a degree in graphic design. And eventually I wanted to become an artist, a gallery artist. And I told myself as a kid that one day I would have my paintings hanging in galleries like all over the country, and it came true. And I got to travel and I get to make a living as an artist. But it wasn't until like during COVID that I was seeing all these things that were going on in the world, and it just made me really sad, like inside my heart. And I was like, having 2 daughters, I kind of sat down, turned everything off, and started watching the cartoons that I loved growing up as a kid. A lot of the Disney, like Gummy Bears and DuckTales, and shows like Mr. Rogers and Sesame Street. And I remember that warm, like chicken soup for the soul kind of feeling watching those shows. And I'm like, the world needs more of this. And I was doing art, and it was cartoony and illustrative, but it had a lot to do with my own struggles with mental health and depression. And I wasn't really pushing anything positive. I was more of just talking about my own feelings, and it was my own therapy. But when all these things were going on in the world and I was watching these shows like Mr. Rogers, I'm like, well, Mr. Rogers' songs are very simple, cute, straight and to the point. I'm like, I think I could do that. because I used to love to write poetry, and I realized because I know how to illustrate, there's nothing stopping me from writing a children's book. So I first wrote a book called I'm Not Okay Today, and it's another book that I was giving away on the cruise. And I wrote this one, and it was about a little child that just going through their feelings. They don't even understand them, and they don't know how to express them, and sometimes they feel like they're broken. And I felt like that growing up a lot. So I wanted to write this book. And while I was doing this research and all these things about myself and my own mental health, working with autism groups, I kind of found out that I was on the spectrum because I was working with these children and they were like telling me all these things that they do. And I realized that I do a lot of the similar things. And their parents were like, well, have you ever been checked? And one thing led to another. I met a doctor and he donated his time. And I found out that I was high functioning, but on the spectrum. And I didn't see it as a handicap. I saw that almost like as a gift because I saw the world differently than what other people see it like. And that's why I'm able to create the art that I create because I see the world in my own ways. And I'm like, that's not a handicap at all. I'm like, to me, this feels like a superpower. So I have this gift that I'm able to remember not only memories of when I was a kid, but the emotions and what I felt like as a child. So that's why I'm able to write these books from a child's perspective to adults. And I call all my books a children's book for adults. Even though it's geared for children, it's geared for every adult and every inner child that's in the adult because we still have that inner child in us a lot of times, with a lot of trauma. So I write these books for kids, but I hope that the parent also reads them for themselves. And that's why, to me, when we were doing the cruise, I grew up such a huge Disney fan and storytelling fan that they teach that even though we were doing the same gifts exchange like Disney stickers and all this other stuff, I wanted to give these books away any chance that I get. I mean, I do conventions, I do trade shows, but the message is so important to me that I want to get these books out. And I've written like about 5 books right now, every one focusing on mental health. I'm working on another autism book right now that's going to come out next month. So to me, it's getting that message because it's so important to me. And then the more the world seems scarier and like angrier, the more that I feel like I have to do this. So that's why I was like for the cruise, I was like I have to give these books away, and then it was just this fun thing where the family started recognizing me and having their kids like come up to me and like I got to sign it, and it was just a lot of
Oh,
fun, and it was just to me it was just amazing. And because I was on that cruise, and there were so many families that had their children on a spectrum that when I posted on the group that I was doing this, I was getting requests like, "Can I get a book? Can I get a book? Can I get a book?" And we ran out. And while I was
oh,
on that cruise speaking to these families and these kids, I got the idea for the next book that's coming out that I'm working on right now called Artie the Artistic Turtle. And
oh
it's
my.
and I tell
Oh,
parents that the book is about like if you ever spoken to a child or anybody that's on the spectrum and you speak about their interest, the things that they love, the thing that they obsess most about, they go almost to a genius level PhD doctorate thesis about it, and it could be art, it could be dinosaurs, it could be whatever it is, and then you see that
Space.
spark in them. Yeah, it's space, and it's like you see that spark in them, and they just dump all this beautiful information and excitement out. And I'm like, I do that. I have friends that do that. I see that in kids. As adults, we don't almost allow ourselves to be that excited about things that much anymore. And like to me, I'm like, that's such a beautiful aspect that I'm writing this story and illustrating this story right now, and it was just about this little turtle who just loves art, and it's telling you all about it. And if you've ever had, like, if you ever spoke to a child or had a child that's on the spectrum or yourself on the spectrum, you know what that feeling is like, and it's hard to explain. But I'm trying my best to do it on this book, and I've been talking to a lot of people here in Las Vegas that I work with, a lot of foundations that work with families to get resources, for their kids that I started showing them the book and showing the kids the books, and to me, it's like being able to share them the book, and they're like, I do this and I do that, and this is me. And that's my biggest compliment right now to that book is when every kid and everybody that reads it, I'm like, this is me. And I'm like, yes, look, that's my goal. So that's what I'm working on right now. And that's a little bit of what's going on.
And say one thing about it is it's not just this is me, but you're also showing the world this is how they think. So you're showing them that, you know, take this beautiful diamond. There it's not something to be afraid of. It's not something to fear. It's not something, to shun or anything. This is a beautiful diamond. This is how it works.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
It's such a
you're
beautiful thing.
showing the
And
world this is how it works, and this is how you need to work with it. And that's what I love about your books, that you're describing that, is you're saying this is how it works, because
yeah,
you're showing it
and
from your perspective. And I
it's
love that.
hard for people to put stuff into words. And that's when I realized with my art that I do is I take this, I've always had this quote with my own art, for whether it be my paintings or my illustrations. And when people try to get me to explain it, I'm like, say it simple, mean it deep.
Mhm.
Visually, my art is very simplistic, but the message behind it goes so much deeper because I'm not telling you what to think. I'm just kind of putting that information in front of you. So when
Mhm.
people look at my art, even though it's cartoony and colorful, they could relate to the character, be like, he looks sad or he looks happy. I'm like, that's actually just you projecting your feelings onto it, which is what I love to do. And being able to have that gift within me of being able to share how a child like me as a child would feel explaining whatever I'm going through. It also, these books also allow myself, as I learn more about living on the spectrum and why these things bother me or why certain things are able to, get me like more overwhelmed. I had to learn to have more grace to myself, and that's what this taught me. It was to have that caring and loving grace instead of being so harsh on myself because I thought I was making mistakes. And I think that that's a beautiful lesson to teach children, but always to remind adults of that as well, because we do so much for others, but when it comes to ourselves, we don't take that much care and grace like we do to others. And that's something that I want to remind people with my art. And these books, I take them to conventions and trade shows, and I always make sure that parents read them. And I
There's a
try
lot of
my best to get them to read them, but a lot of
you know.
adults don't want to.
I see, but I really wanted to hear what he had to
No,
say.
I hear you, but I think he needs to hear some of these comments because they're really good.
So the world needs more of you. Thank you so much. I have an autistic nephew and I'm going to get your books for him. I also want a book for my patients, please. That'd be great. Your way is beautiful. And Julie says, I'm crying happy tears over here. You're such a treat to know. Super Hubby asks, did you ever get art training? And he also says hello.
Oh, well,
He didn't
thank you guys
actually
so much.
answer that
Honestly,
either.
it's like a lot of times I do like it's funny. I feel like I'm in my own little world and everything's closed off, and I'm just working on these books, working on illustrations. I'm like, every time I do a page or a painting, I'm like, I hope this helps. And it was based on a quote from Mr. Rogers, because I literally paid like all my teaching, all the teachings that he had, all the books that he wrote. People wrote books about him. I studied everything about Mr. Rogers, and he was always there for me. And one of the things that he was quoted saying is that when he was young and he saw scary things outside in the world, he would ask his grandmother, and she would say, always look for the helpers. There's always people willing to help.
Mhm.
So from that moment on, I took that as like just my fighting call. Like that is like etched in my heart to like, okay, be the kind of helper that he would have been proud of.
Aw.
And unfortunately, I didn't have a lot of support with my family growing up. That's why there was a lot of trauma there that I'm still overcoming. But being able to learn to forgive myself, to forgive them, to realize that nobody has a blueprint on how to be a parent. And it wasn't until I became a parent that I realized it was like, wow, there's a lot of things that I have to do, especially for my daughters, to let them know that it's okay to not feel okay. It's okay to feel worried or scared, because at the end of the day, there's always people that are going to be willing there to help and to listen. Might not be a million, but one or two are more than be willing to help. And with the books that I wrote, um, I just needed them as a kid, and they weren't there. So I
Mhm.
figured as I got older, I'm like, well, why can't I do it? What's stopping me from doing it? And for the longest time, I did feel that I wasn't the qualified person to do it. I saw shows like Mr. Rogers and Steve from Blue's Clues, and I was like, I can't. I mean, just even look at me, look where I came from, look where I've done, and it took me a long time to realize I'm exactly what Mr. Rogers wanted us to be the best version of myself, and that way I could let other kids know out there that you can do this. Not only can you do this as a living, but you could do it and help other people out there.
Mhm.
And I know everything is that I do is it's such a to me it's such a blessing that I get to do this and show this to my daughters and see that they could do these things too at the same time while I'm feeling like I'm actually doing something that helps. Because I was doing art before and it wasn't really, I don't think it was helping anybody else besides myself, to feel better. And when I just saw how angry the world can be and how, scared the world can be, I was like, I feel like I need to do something. And even if I'm wrong, this is a hill that I want to die on of just empathy, kindness, love, and respect. Because why not?
Well, creatives tend to use their heart and soul anyway, and you are putting your heart and your soul out there, but you're also putting it on another level. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And so thank you for putting your heart out there and putting a part of yourself out there that not a lot of people are willing to risk. And so I think that's huge and it's admirable. So thank you for doing that. Did he freeze?
I think so.
We might be frozen.
I think he might have froze.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
But I want to add a little bit onto what he was talking about with advocacy. That's the number one thing as an RBT that you want to teach the kids is literally how to advocate for themselves and to speak up for themselves, and how we call in the biz, use your words. So I love that. I love that. I love that in his books, he's essentially teaching the kids to use their words and figure out that they are just like every other kid, except you're that much more great.
Right. And it gets me thinking, because growing up, I went through a number of different mindsets. First off was that everyone's mind must work like mine. And then I couldn't understand why it seemed, I always got in trouble or this or that, and I was like, but everybody else does the same thing, right? But like, as I got older, I realized they don't. Their minds don't work like my minds. And that's why, I was like a different perspective on things. And I love how in these, he literally goes behind the scenes for the kids, how their minds work and how they learn to hide that, and like this one especially, like goes into how they learn to hide who they are, because all of a sudden, they realize I am different, and they become, embarrassed or worried or scared about how that's going to affect others. But then it goes beyond that. And that's what makes this great, is that the story goes into once you realize that that is actually a superpower, literally, like that's what makes you special. That's what makes you unique. And it's a good thing that you're like that. It's not a bad thing. And that was a huge step for my brain to have to process all that growing up without any knowledge of what the deal was with that, knowing that I was kind of different and realizing, oh, everybody doesn't think like I do. That's why we don't get along all the time. That's why I get in a lot of trouble. I was like, yeah, life makes more sense with that. And
Welcome back on. We kind of kept going.
Well, we're just giving your book more accolades. That's all.
I was sitting outside and being in Vegas. It's 104 degrees, and my phone just said it is way too hot. So I had to run inside.
That'll do it. That'll do it.
I've never experienced that.
I'm out.
My goodness.
No, and I really
we have a comment that says, "Dad says what an awesome fellow he is. You have a Vietnam vet fan."
Oh, you know what it means so much to me being able to do these books. And when I doing this art, I would start getting messages from like grown men overseas, like people that I never even met, people that are 20, 30 years my senior. And because I was, according to a lot of people, because I was able to open up 110% when I was dealing with my emotions and stuff like that, and talking about it on social media through my art, I'd get messages that they were able to open up like 10% to a family member. So to me, I'm like, if I could do this and just be out there, and I get a lot of, negative messages because it's social media, it's the internet, it tends to happen. But there's the ones that are messaging me privately and saying, thank you for sharing this because I'm not able to. Thank you for being this open because I was able to talk to my mom and my parents, and doing conventions and trade shows when parents would come up and tell me, my child was feeling depressed and they didn't know how to express themselves. So they literally just started showing me your Instagram and showing me your books and your illustrations. And that's when I felt that, okay, this isn't just me trying to do these books just for myself or for fun. Like there's actually a purpose here. So it's like a lot of the times it's just seeing these children. I'm like, I know what it felt like to want to speak up, or I know what it felt like to feel broken and nobody telling me that it was going to be okay. A simple hand on the shoulder would have been perfectly fine. Like, it's going to be okay. but I unfortunately I didn't have that. And it's such a huge thing for a child to have those adults that could reinforce those moments that, the things are going to be fine, the things will pass. And a lot of times because we didn't have that growing up, I guess it's hard to have it for our children. And I'm like, now I, I think one of the biggest things that helped me is that I allowed myself to remain like childlike within me and try to keep as much childlike wonder. That's why I'm so obsessed with Disneyland. That's why I'm so obsessed with the cruise. Like that cruise that you saw me in, my kids weren't even in it. Like my kids were at home. That was me and that was me and my wife's like trip that we took, and it was just
Oh, that's awesome.
the storylines from Disney and Pixar. It's like those are the things that made me happy. And a lot of these, there's one book that I wrote that's called "I'm Not Okay Today," and adults will probably get halfway through it before they put it down because it touches a nerve. Kids will get all the way through it and read it, and I find it interesting because as a child, you still haven't been jaded by thinking that there's always going to be a bad ending, and you're always hoping for the good. So I always tell people in the middle of them reading the book, I'm like, it has a happy ending. I promise. I swear. And it was like a lot of adults would be like, oh no, it's fine, or a lot of people are like, oh, it's okay. I'm in therapy. Like a therapist, or I'm a counselor, or I'm teacher. And then 2 minutes later, I turn back and they're just sobbing. Yeah, and it was just I always felt like I was never good enough to be a writer. I just was the kid that drew. But watching more of like these documentaries of people that I admire, whether it be like LeVar Burton from Reading Rainbow, or Jim Henson, these are the people that I'm like, I want to do what you guys did. I want to be able to help the younger generation to feel that childlike wonder still exists and not end. And it doesn't matter if you're neurodivergent, it doesn't matter if you're dealing with ADHD. We all have that beautiful gift within us, and it's something that can be shared with everybody if we just pay attention and look a little bit harder, especially with our kids. Because I have two daughters, one's 13, one's 18, and I can never like imagine what it'd be like not being there, supporting them in what they love to do. Because when you see these kids just spark up, it's such a beautiful feeling. And I do have friends that are, so many friends that are adult artists, and when they start talking about it, it's still that same beautiful feeling. But it'd be amazing if we could share that everybody, not just the ones that are creating art, because we all have that love and that passion that we keep deep down inside of us. But whether it like we allowed life to beat it out of us or whatever, it's like to me, I'm like, I want to be that reminder to that little kid inside of us, because I'm
Yeah.
that to myself and to my kids every day. And it's like writing these books, especially the new one, like with the Artie, the autistic turtle. It was something that I wanted to do, but I was scared to do. But
Well,
now I see that it's important.
well, even academics though is somewhat of an art. Mathematics is an art,
Yeah,
and people don't
absolutely is.
connect that. And it's like, no, actually, math can be an art,
It's a
and
beautiful
so
art.
it's a passion, and
Mhm.
it's something that can be driven. But sometimes, if somebody's good in academics, they're driven so hard that passion is driven out of them.
Yeah,
That creativity is driven out of them, and they kind of lose the artistic spark part of it, and it just turns into a drive
oh yeah.
as
I
opposed to passion.
I
And
have fallen out of love with art many times, and it's broken my heart many times until I learned that, as cheesy as it sounds, it's the journey of just continuing going on. And it's like, and I've burned myself out because, taking the leap and being a full-time artist while being married with kids, it's not an easy thing to do that a lot of people never take that leap. But I couldn't be stuck in a job. I needed to do what I wanted to do. But there's times where I myself have burned myself out to where the drive was there, but the passion wasn't. And I had to relearn to fall in love with it of why I did it. And with me, I realized that if I stop doing it because I'm hurt, I didn't get that gig or whatever, and I just like I don't want to do this anymore. Eventually, that itch comes around, and I'm just like I can't. I have to create. I have to. It's my own therapy. It's my own way of. It's my journal. It's like, and at least to me, I knew that no, even though nobody believed that I could have been able to do this as an adult, like even like my own family, being able to look back to that kid in third grade that made that promise that I will always be an artist, and then my cartoon paintings will hang in galleries across the world. Being able to say that I've done that, and I'm continuing to do that while still being able to be a dad there every day, because that's the most important thing to me. It's being able to do this and be there for my kids and letting them know that as scary as the world can be, there's always people willing to help.
Well,
Living the dream.
as I say, yours is a mission now. With
That
the
part.
that's a mission.
It
I
was
think we have a few
between,
comments real quick.
Me too. Mom and dad deserve fun too, says Juju. And Jeremy says that's one reason why I love seeing the energy my daughter gives when showing her art.
so beautiful.
His daughter is also autistic.
It's so
And I
beautiful.
think honestly, everybody needs that person in their life, that moment, whether it's a book that they pick up from a, you know, or a teacher, or someone in their field of study or something, even like, or just like an advocate, like who works with autistic children or whatever it is. They need someone who is that person that is the catalyst for their life of realizing I am actually, I am actually good like this. I am made this way for a reason. There's a purpose, and I think that is exactly what your books are doing. And I love that. I love that the mission that sends out that message of not just to the kids themselves who might have might be on the spectrum, but to the families of them, or to the people around them who don't know, the children who don't know it from that perspective as well too. And I love that. I think that's amazing. So thank you for doing that.
Thanks. It's just there's a lot of times too when I talk to families, or that a lot of parents will bring their kids to my booths at events, and it's kind of, it kind of hurts a little bit because I see that they're a little frustrated because they don't understand their children, and a lot of times they haven't talked to anybody about it, and they fear that their child might be on the spectrum, because a lot of times what I get from them is that a parent might feel like they failed if their child is diagnosed, and because of that they don't even want to get them tested or looked at, let alone get themselves checked as well. So it was like, it's a lot of the time it's almost having this conversation. I don't mean this in a disrespectful way, but when you take your dog to a dog trainer, they don't really teach the dog, they teach the trainer, how to be able to work with the dog. So it's like being able to talk to these parents are like, well, I just get frustrated when they do this and they do that, and I just don't know why they do that. And I'm like, it's okay. Like, it doesn't mean anything negative when they just stop talking. It doesn't mean anything negative when they just kind of go off by themselves in the middle of a conversation. It's just getting to understand the person. And, to me, it's getting to understand myself. And the more that you understand yourself, the more that you're like, well, I don't like that. Maybe I shouldn't do that. This overwhelms me. I shouldn't put myself around this. That's just normal for anybody. But it's now you're learning it for your child as well. And I found it harder being a parent who's on the spectrum, because nobody really talks about that. You talk about parents who have children that are on the spectrum, but being a parent who still has to deal with the everyday issues of being a parent and the stress of, raising kids while trying not to stay overwhelmed and trying not to get upset or crash out. It's something that's not talked about enough. And that's something that's another book for the future.
Yes,
And
that should definitely be a book for the future. I was gonna say.
That book, because I want to give it out to quite a few parents that I know.
Right.
it's a tough one, but I'm happy that I was able to go through all of this, the ups and the downs, because I'm grateful that I could share these stories and be able to get these messages out there, just because I feel that it's very important that it's not talked about enough. And it might not make a
Absolutely.
big dent in society, but at least I'm like chipping away at it.
Well, Juan, thank you so much for sharing your heart and for sharing your soul and for sharing your books with the world and sharing your art with the world. It's huge and it's definitely needed. So we thank you so much for joining us today and sharing that and sharing your time with us. To learn more about Juan and his work, you can look at an Instagram at NINOBUNI. I shared parts of that on the screen earlier today. You can check that out for yourself. Next week, we're going to have comedian Thomas Mays. So we get to check that out next week. Mombi, get your wands to the ready. Go ahead and take us out. We're over time.
All right, guys. If you haven't smashed that thumbs up yet, smash it and share this out, because more people need to know about this. And we absolutely love it. as well as make sure you're following CJ Peterson, Mom Umbrella, and Yukita Cosplay, and Juju Jones, who isn't with us right now. But she will be back next week. And until next time, guys, get those wands up because it is Mischief Managed. Love y'all. Bye.